fishing news is brought to you by Navionics, Okuma, Yozuri, Evinrude, Lama Glass, and the Star Island Yacht Club in Montauk, New York.
I'm Jim Hutchinson with the New Jersey Delaware Bay edition of the Fisherman magazine here at my happy place. Of course, Labor Day has passed, so has Dorian. And when I was growing up at the Jersey Shore, there was one term used to describe this time of year. It's better in September. And I know it's only going to get better, especially as some of those migratory stripers begin to arrive along the Jersey Shore. Sometime later this month, maybe soon. Can't forget that world record fish that stood for so long was caught on September 21st back in the 80s during the height of the mullet run. Now, I do get word from Fred Galafaro at our New York edition. He says Montauk turned on this week right after the storm. He said it's a little bit like those old days. Oh man, was that cool. Mostly smaller fish, but it's definitely a good sign of some of the things to come. So we'll be keeping an eye on the surf and continuing to plug into that action to see what happens and how things transpire along the shore. And I do have feelers out as well for you guys who are chasing false albacore. I talked to Alan Riley this week. He said to some folks running around the beaches up at Sandy Hook looking for him, he doesn't have any substantiated catches. Meanwhile, Nick Honicheski let me know this week that he was chasing false albacore along the beach at Lavalette. He said they just stayed a little bit beyond casting distance. Told you, Nick, you should have been doing some push-ups. In addition to those false albacore, of course, we still have the Spanish Max around, and that's been making some really nice light tackle action. Jay Sanchez checked in with Grumpies this week. Spanish mackerel and some cocktail blues. Those cocktail blues, that would smoke up nicely for a little bit of Sunday football. Now, a few weeks back, we did find out that Shell Karras, he got in on those bonita along the beaches as well in southern Ocean County. So hopefully we'll get a bonita blitz turn on. I know along these beaches in Bayhead, northern Ocean County, we had some good bonita action all the way through October last year. Now, when this wind turns around especially, goes a little bit offshore, we get those glassy conditions, it should set up nicely for folks wanting to throw some metals along the beach for some speedsters. Fluke in tight as well. We got a good word on Asbury Park Fishing Club member Thomas Asbury. He checked in on the northern coast earlier this week with a 29-inch, 10-pound fluke, a doormat in the surf. Definitely a great time of year to get up to the beach looking for those fluke, because those baits, this mullet, the peanut bunker, snappers, everything starts flooding out of the inlets and eventually down the beach. A lot of times those fluke come in tight in the wash this time of year. Now, bucktails and jigs with gulp, always a good opportunity. The other thing that I always used to like to do years ago was going with a traditional three-way rig. I'd use a bank sinker instead of a pyramid sinker. Go with full whole mullet or a half mullet and cast it out. You can use that bank sinker when you cast out, just let it roll a little bit, and sometimes you could feel it drop down into the slough. It's better with the bank sinker, but good chances for you to catch some fluke in the surf right now. Don't forget, Fluke ends in New Jersey as of September 23rd, so it's the final days right now to fill the freezer with some good fish. It's a good time of year for live line and the peanuts, stripping out some snappers or mackerel and fishing around the inlets, and of course the wrecks, the rock piles, the artificial reefs here in New Jersey and along the Delaware coast as well. Now, if you're fishing in the back bay along those sedges or marshes, whether you're hoofing it back there, you're out on the boat, don't forget to take along some of those Stillwater Smack It Juniors and some of those Tsunami Talkers. Hit those creeks, especially at high tide, just as the tide starts flowing out, especially lower light conditions, dawn and dusk. We'll have some stripers on those baits along the back. Great time of year. Let's hope we see a good mullet run this season. We're just a few days ahead of the full moon of September, so we're right on schedule with what I said around that September 21st when Al McReynolds had that big fish in a mullet blitz. We're just days away from the time when those mullets start marching down the beach. See those V-wakes inshore. A couple of sheepshead around the inlets, especially farther to the south, Barnegat Light and farther south from that. Jeff Crabtree, he checked in with me this week, said he had a 14-pounder on the Barnegat South Jetty earlier this week. Meanwhile, Charles Breon at the Sea Billy, he shared this video from Justin Fessler at Kick and Tail. Now, Charles calls it boom, boom, pow, waiting for those bites, using the crab jigs right around the structure. But he had a nice sheepshead, a convict fish, put that slim wave outfit to the test. And definitely, you have those opportunities with some of those tropicals, and especially the sheepshead. I think they're going to fatten up pretty soon, hopefully have another month or so of that sheepshead action. Boat-wise, there are quite a few options this time of year. I was in at Barlow GMC Buick this week picking up a new ride and checked in with Jamie Goshorn. And he said his sons Matthew and Nathan pulled him away from the shop just long enough to get out with Captain Eddie Yates on the Susan Hudson out of Barnegat Light. A good mix of Spanish mackerel and bluefish. Meanwhile, farther to the south, down into Cape May County, aboard the Cape May Lady out of South Jersey Marina, a mix of different fish caught on board this week. Mixed fish that includes triggerfish and weak fish and some cocktail blues. Nearby on the Miss Chris, same thing. You can count on some keeper Fluke, of course, in the next couple of weeks before the season ends. I'll have to serve up with those triggerfish, and also, again, Spanish mackerel. The Spanish mackerel inshore mid-range has been keeping a lot of folks busy on the troll. Good activity. Now, we had a big striper meeting last week in Ocean City I told you about. Another big striper meeting this Thursday, September 12th in Manahawkin. I've got details on the other side, but first, let's check in on some of those landlocked stripers up in the Poconos with George, the Pocono Outdoors guy.
Well, hey, thanks, Jim. You know, things have surely been quiet after the Labor Day weekend here in the Poconos, but that's not stopping guys from catching fish. Once again, the boys in Jersey are leading it off with Brendan Hilly, again taking a PB with his beautiful 41-inch northern pike. What a great catch. It's such a good thing to see those toothy critters starting to take off as well. It's a great sign. Now, back over here in Monroe County in the Poconos, things have been a little slow, but we're still catching fish. Here's my son Jeremy with a nice little cookie cutter bass, typical for the Poconos here, but they're starting to bite. Much more action coming on. Now also the striper bite. Josh Taylor and I were out catching shorts on topwater. There were big ones weren't hitting, but at least there was some action, and those bigger ones will be picking up real soon. Now also, guys, I want to remind you, as fall comes in, don't forget the black crappie bite. As water temps go down, hit those crappies in the late evening. They're not only great on the table, they're a whole lot of fun to catch on light line. So there's much more action to come. Now, Jim, saltwater, freshwater, I think we're all waiting for those water temps to cool down and the fishing to get hot. From Pennsylvania, I'm George, your Pocono Outdoors guy.
If you're looking to get offshore, this is a great time of year as long as the weather allows. I know the Reel Seat is putting together a 1.5-day tile fish trip later this month on the Voyager out of Point Pleasant. It leaves 10 p.m. on a Wednesday, returns 5 a.m. approximately on a Friday. So you'd miss one day of work, but get out there. That's later in September. Call the shop for details on that. Of course, quite a few party boats are ramping up for the offshore trips into the fall. Pick up the September edition of the Fisherman magazine. We've got an article on party boat tuna, so you know what to prep, what to bring. It also has a listing of some of those party boats who are going offshore and who's sailing and when they are. Now, also in the September edition, we've got a full rundown on the striped bass options, including the circle hook requirement that's in that suite of options that everybody's talking about. The full write-up is in the September edition. I also wrote up the last week of meetings in New Jersey at thefisherman.com. The final meeting is this Thursday, 6 p.m. at the Bay Avenue Community Center. That's across from the boat shop in Manahawkin. We had 60 members of the public for 2 meetings last week. I would expect to see a better turnout this Thursday, September 12th. So far, it seems like it's fairly split, the options, as far as people wanting the 35-inch and above, or maybe that 28 to 35-inch slot limit. Speakers seemed unanimous in their circle hook requirement, seemed to favor that. There are other thoughts and opinions expressed by attendees in Ocean City last week, including suspending the bonus program, increased enforcement, spawning area protection for striped bass on the Raritan and Hudson. One guy even wanted to see a fish handling class for people who want to fish for stripers. The New Jersey Division of Fish and Wildlife wants your opinion on all these things. You have until October 7th to weigh in with the ASMFC on which option you like for striped bass. But the New Jersey Division of Fish and Wildlife wants your opinion. They want to hear what you have to say, and that opportunity is this Thursday, 6 p.m., that final public hearing. Now, I don't have an option. I'm not going to stand up and say anything, but I'll be there at the meeting, and we will write it up so you know what happened, what transpired. I hope to see you there. If you can't make it, stay tuned. We'll have the update next week at thefisherman.com, and I'll try to give you another update next week in our video forecast right here at thefisherman.com.
Win the incredible Steigercraft Evinrude Lowrance Grand Prize Boat Package and more in the Fisherman's 2019 Dream Boat Fishing Challenge. Get the details now at thefisherman.com.